Hi everybody, Fintan here from Dams and Cloud, and this week I want to talk about Zoom fatigue. I think at this stage all of us have experienced this during the last year or so at some stage, so if you want to know how to combat Zoom fatigue, you know what to do. Stay tuned. So I want to talk about some of the ways that you can combat Zoom fatigue. There was an interesting study I'd read in the Harvard Review where they had looked at this phenomenon over the last year or so. Obviously with COVID, a lot more video calls are happening. It isn't just Zoom that causes this fatigue, but that's how the name kind of came from. It's basically when you're spending a huge amount of time doing video calls, you're looking at a lot of blue light, which is a light that comes from our phones and from our computers, and you get fatigue or tiredness from doing this over a period of time. I think as well over the pandemic, a lot of people are also doing video calls for social reasons, so not just for work. And so the amount of video calls or the amount of time that people are spending looking at the screen has increased dramatically. So we all know what it is, but what can you actually do to combat this? Well, the first thing that they suggest is not to multitask if you can. So jumping from one task to another is actually quite difficult for us. And so they recommend that you don't do this if you can help it. So if it's possible to have, a half day or a day where you've got a couple of calls together, it's better to do that rather than switching from one task to the other. The other really important one is to take breaks. And this is definitely something I found that really helped me. It's important that you take a break, not just from doing a video call, but also a break from your screen or from your computer. As our change management expert Isabel says, go look at a plant or some nature when you're on your break. And I think that's a really good piece of advice. Actually going and just, even if it's just a few minutes while you're on your tea break and you're having your cup of tea, go and find some nature. Hopefully you've got a garden or something nearby. It will just really, really help your body and yourself to decompress and kind of take you away from the technology for a short amount of time. The other thing is obviously reducing the screen time that you have. Even though I'm a techie and I love my technology, I use my notebook all the time. And so often when I'm brainstorming a video or I'm thinking about maybe something for a customer, I will actually just take a pen and paper and spend a little time thinking about the topic. And that can be a great way to spend some time away from the screen. Again, you're taking a break while you're still working, but also reducing the screen brightness as well. So for the times when you do have to look at a screen, think about reducing the actual brightness of your screen. Many computers and laptops now have the ability to reduce blue light at the end of the day, particularly as it disrupts our sleep. I know some people get blue light glasses as well that will actually block blue light coming from devices. But the other thing is backlighting your device or indeed your screen. So backlighting will actually really reduce the strain on your eyes. And if you're someone who's going to be in video calls for a long, long period of time, you're going to find that will have a huge difference. So that's definitely something I would recommend. And then another area is audio only. So I've seen this with a few businesses where they're finding it difficult with back-to-back calls, and maybe at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, they switch to just audio. And I think that's a really, really interesting idea, where you're just removing the screen altogether. Maybe people are able to just put their headphones on and just maybe walk around, maybe even do something else, as I said, be in nature, in the garden or whatever, and still engage with the call. Particularly valuable if you've got a large call going on, maybe where you don't need to be engaged all of the time. So an audio only is definitely an interesting way to go. Another major way is actually self-view. As human beings, it mightn't surprise you to find that we are not supposed to look at ourselves all day long. And if you were to spend the entire day looking at yourself in the mirror, you might find that you're a little bit exhausted. And the same goes for video calls. And it's natural, I think, for us to look at ourselves. Most of these video conferencing tools have a little self-view, but they also often have a way to turn it off. So what they recommend is that you get yourself set up for your video call. Obviously make sure that you're in shot and that you look good, but then turn your self view off, because most of us are drawn to look at ourselves constantly, and that's actually quite exhausting. And it isn't how we naturally interact with people in a meeting. If you were to come to a meeting in person, you wouldn't actually be able to see yourself. You'd be looking at the other people. So it's really, really important that you try this out, and I have done it myself, and I find it much more engaging, that you're much more able naturally to engage with people in the meeting. So the last one is natural light and plants. I think if you can, it's useful to have plants in the space that you're working in anyway. But again, particularly from the point of view of reducing that strain on your eyes and that fatigue from the whole Zoom fatigue thing that we're talking about. But also thinking about natural light. If you've got a window, if you can sit near a window and have some of that natural light within your space, it's going to really, really help with that. At the moment, we're in a room that has no windows that go to the outside. So, that we're probably going to find at the end of this day, if we're working, looking at a computer, that we're going to be much more tired than if I was in my home office, which has a huge amount of windows and natural light. So that's it from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's update. I'd love to know what tips that you might have that you've found have helped reduce Zoom fatigue, or Google Meet fatigue, or indeed Microsoft Teams fatigue, any sort of video conferencing fatigue. Please do let us know in the comments below. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn, they're the most popular ones, and then we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as well. So that's it from me. I will see you guys next week.